Welcome to Sage Audio. Today let's cover how to mix bass. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Understand bass fundamentals. For this video, I made a demo in which we have a lot of competing signals in the low frequency range, so let's see how we'd go about cleaning everything up and creating distinct spaces for each track. With analyzers, we can see each bass track's fundamental. In this example, the root note is either E1 at 41 Hz, like with the kick drum, or E2 at 82 Hz, like with the bass synth. Examining the response first gives you a better understanding of what will need to be separated. Now, before we start adding processing, let's take a listen to the full before and after to hear how the track sounds originally and what it's going to sound like when we're done. Attenuate overlapping bass. Now that we understand where the powerful frequencies lie for each track, we can prioritize some tracks over others and begin attenuating where needed. For example, I attenuated some of 41 Hz and 164 Hz on the bass guitar since it competed with the kick, the upright bass, and the low piano. Or on the upright bass, I attenuated some of G1 at 49 Hz and E2 at 82 Hz since it overpowered higher frequencies in my bass and my bass synth. So let's take a listen to these EQs being enabled and notice how attenuating strong overlap gets it closer to a balanced sound. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. Shape bass tone with compression. After I've attenuated strong overlapping frequencies, I'll use compression to create unique timbres and even stereo placements for my tracks. For example, on the kick drum, I used an 1176 compressor to distort the kick's transients and give it a punchier sound, emphasizing higher frequencies over the lower competing ones. On the bass synth, I used the Lifeline console plugin by Excite Audio to compress the mid-image more than the side, resulting in both dynamic control and stereo expansion for the synth. I also lowered the attack and release to add some slight distortion. Let's take a listen to compression being introduced and keep in mind how it could do a lot more to a sound than simply control dynamics. Vary bass harmonics. By using distinct saturator plugins and saturation types, we can create unique harmonics or overtones for each track. This will help further separate our instruments. For example, I used this PSP saturator on my bass synth to introduce hard clipping, but then used modern tape saturation on the bass guitar. Now, you'll notice that I also emphasize saturation on differing low frequencies for each instrument. Let's introduce saturation to our tracks and notice how their unique harmonics help differentiate each signal. Kick bass sidechain compression. Now, most of you have probably heard of sidechain compression, so let's use this Shaperbox plugin by Cableguys to accomplish it. Now, I used it on my upright bass, and then I sidechained the kick. Now, what's cool about this processor is that it lets me compress only the lows, so whenever the kick hits, the competing frequencies were attenuated, but the highs that helped separated the two stayed intact, resulting in a brighter, more defined sound. Now, this is slightly unrelated, but I also use this plugin to create a sweeping filter every bar. Now, you'll notice that when we play the demo, how this frequency cut gives other instruments a moment to cut through. Let's take a listen to the plugin being enabled. Amplify distinct frequencies. Next, I'm going to insert an EQ on my bass synth and my bass guitar to amplify higher frequency ranges and help set the two apart. You'll notice that on the synth, I amplified some of E5 and G6, while on the bass guitar, I amplified G5, E7, and G7. By amplifying varying in-key frequencies, I give each instrument some room while clarifying some musical aspects of each performance. Let's take a listen. Placing bass in the stereo field. We touched on stereo placement earlier when I used mid-side compression to widen my bass synth, but now I'll use some subtle sample delay to widen my low piano. You might also have noticed that I pan my kick very slightly to the left and my bass guitar slightly to the right. Lastly, on my upright bass, I used a mid-side EQ to make the lows slightly more mono and then expanded the width of my E5 note. Let's take a listen to these changes and notice how, although we typically want to keep the bass centered, a little variation can help differentiate instruments. If you're enjoying the channel, use the search box to watch more of our videos. Subtle reverb on bass. Next, I'm going to use the Spark Verb by UVI to create some unique reverb for my bass guitar. I'll keep everything super short and the mix low, but use this larger size and some pre-delay to help the bass's transient cut through. Now, the real reason that I use this plugin though is for the diffusion section. By controlling the start time of my diffusion and its amount, I can create a cool reverb slapback effect that augments the snap of the bass guitar. Let's take a listen to how this effect gives the guitar a unique identity in the mix. Sidechain resonance reduction. With this resonance reducer, I could sidechain any instrument to dynamically reduce overlapping frequencies on any other instrument. For example, I inserted it on the bass synth and I sidechained the bass guitar before focusing the attenuation on the mids to reduce overlap in this frequency range. Whereas on the upright bass, I sidechained the bass synth and I attenuated lows and high mids. Now this really comes in handy as the last insert to clean up the signal and to ensure that there's a balance between competing signals. Let's take a listen. Remove noise from bass guitar. So this is something that I've been doing throughout the entire video, but it's something specific, so I thought I'd cover it later. In short, my bass guitar was noisy, so I used a multiband processor to cause downward expansion or gating, but only on the highs. Let's take a listen to how this makes high-pitched noise much less noticeable on a DI bass. Bass bus processing. Last up, I changed the outputs of each track to a collective bus on which I inserted this plugin Fresh Air to subtly brighten everything. Then, with a mid-side EQ, I made the lows more mono with a high-pass filter on the side image before boosting some highs. Now, routing the tracks like this made it easier to collectively shape the sound of my bass tracks. Let's take a listen. If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.